That artwork is sick, man. Look at that. Finally got this record on Saturday. Was going to record the video then and talk about it because I was very excited. This is one of my most anticipated albums this year. And then we got hit with a bunch of warnings and a bunch of messages about another fucking hurricane is coming towards Florida. And as of right now, it is a category 4. It is out in the Gulf, hundreds of miles away, hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And it's looking like it's going to hit us as a Cat 3 on Wednesday. So if you guys are new to my channel, I live in the Tampa Bay area. I've been here for 12 years. I'm not a Floridian native. I'm actually from Chicago. So the hurricane stuff is not anything I ever grew up with. When I moved to Connecticut to be with my wife, because that's where she's from, and we got married and we lived there for several years before we moved down to Florida. We had hurricanes in Connecticut. We lived through Hurricane Sandy. We lived through Hurricane Irene. Those were the two really bad ones while I lived there. And since we've been down to Florida, there's about one or two hurricanes a year that have some sort of an impact to my area or nothing at all. And this year has been really bad. There's been several storms that have come on the western side of Florida in the Gulf area, and they've decimated several towns north of us. And then 2 years ago, we had Hurricane Ian that decimated the Fort Myers, Naples area. So hurricanes are just a common thing living here, and we knew that moving here. And we deal with them every year, but this is the first time since we've lived here, and the first time in like 100 years or something crazy like that, where we've had hurricanes that have really heavily impacted the Tampa area. We had a Hurricane Helene 2 weeks ago. It was 100 miles off of our coast. The eye passed 100 miles off of our coast, and that still completely destroyed our coastal towns and all of our beaches: Anna Maria Island, Treasure Island, Clearwater Beach, all the way up to Gulf Harbor, which is north of us, in Hudson. Like, all of those areas got destroyed. Every single person lost their home. Every single business got destroyed. The surge was awful. And I live about 10 to 15 minutes from the Gulf. And every single home past a certain road where I live just is horrible. Like, so we're still recovering from that. Some people still don't have power. A lot of people don't have their houses anymore. Their cars got flooded. There's debris damage all over the sides of the road that still haven't been picked up yet. So those are possible. That's possible. Projectiles and stuff like that. So it's been kind of a crazy couple of weeks here, and it's definitely made me really miss the northeast, the north Midwest, where I'm from. Snow, fall weather, not dealing with this. Yes, when I lived in the Midwest, we had tornadoes and catastrophic tornadoes, and I've lived through a couple of those, and really bad thunderstorms, and obviously snowstorms are a pain in the ass, but I much prefer the snowstorms over their shit. So that's what I'm dealing with this week. On Wednesday, it's supposed to be here. We are under a voluntary evacuation order as of 10:20 a.m. Eastern time. However, usually when it goes voluntary, they make it mandatory by the end of the day. So we're just fully expecting to evacuate. We do have a place to go. My parents live here. They are farther inland. We will go there. But it's just annoying. So probably absolutely no videos from me this week besides this one. And then tomorrow announcing the giveaway winner. And then after that, going to just ride out and see what's going on. As always, I will keep everybody updated. But please keep the Florida Gulf Coast in your thoughts, because we've had a rough several weeks, and this sucks, really sucks. So on that note, I always do some sort of like a little bit of an update here on me, but we're going to talk about this album today. I was going to do a normal collection update because I do have several records that have come in. I've got the new Regional Justice Center that just came in. I've got the new Cannon and Fiber album that came in. I have not really sat down and taken time with those yet, so I will hold off and record videos on those next week. But this one, like I said, I've been really, really excited for this and could not wait for it to get here. And let's go ahead and get started talking about this. So this is Undeath's new album, More Insane, out on Prosthetic Records. It just came out this past Friday on October 4th. So they I knew there was a new album coming. If you follow the guys or like Alex and the band on Twitter, they've been talking about recording this and stuff like that. So we knew it was coming, just didn't know exact date. And then they announced it like 2 months ago, and dropped it, the first single and stuff like that. And from the very first single, I was hyped because it was so obvious that I wouldn't say like completely changed their sound because it's still definitely Undeath, but they really matured their sound, I guess you could say. Like Alex's vocals were obviously he was doing a little bit more different things here, and it was just heavy and riffage. It just seemed like a rejuvenated band, a more mature, rejuvenated band. So I was very excited about this. It finally came on Saturday, and just yeah, it's a pretty bare minimum pressing. I mean, if you're familiar with prosthetic, you don't really get all these bells and whistles like you do with like High Roller and stuff like that. But goddamn, do I love that artwork. I'm going to see who the artist is in just a moment because I don't recall if I've ever actually looked to see who it was. And then here's the back. The guys. I mean, this is some pretty like awesome old school death metal artwork, that I really enjoy. I love when it's like this. And I also think Undeath has one of the best logos in the scene. Um, and then of course there's the printed inner sheet here with the lyrics that are incredibly hard to read for my eyes anyway, but for you guys it might be fine. Some more artwork and then the carry on of that artwork. But yeah, it's kind of hard to read. Not gonna lie. I have really bad eyes, obviously, because I wear glasses. Yeah, I can't see. Does it say who the artist is on the back? No, it doesn't. Shit. Okay, well, I'll look up the artist right now. Let me go to their page. It looks familiar. I want to say I know who it is, but I don't want to jump the gun and say that that's who it is. There are artists in the scene that have similar styles. And then I go and I'm like, oh, that's actually not who it is. It's a different artist. So the artwork is done by Matthew Browning. Okay. So yeah, that's who I thought. Matthew Browning is an awesome artist. If you're not familiar with him, I will link his stuff in the description. He's done a lot of other artwork, but yeah, he's pretty cool. Pretty cool artist. So yeah, love that artwork. And then I don't know, the hype sticker says I have the Cadaveric Swirl vinyl. I think this is like the most common pressing, I believe. I think it's cool. I like that coloring. It's like a fleshy color. It reminds me of the Terrasite cattle decapitation pressing that they did in this color. So yeah, there's the vinyl. I always show that off before I talk about the music. The music is phenomenal. I mean, I don't think you guys are probably surprised if you know me and you understand like the start of this channel was highly motivated by labels like Maggot Stomp, Corpse Gristle, Gurgling Gore, Frozen Screams Imprint, Dark Descent Records, all these underground death metal labels like were part of the reason why I started this channel is because I wanted to promote the music on those labels because those are the ones I most frequently buy from. And this is, if you weren't familiar, this is a Maggot Stomp band. This is where they started their career. This is where I figured out who they were. And I immediately became a huge fan of this band the first time I ever heard them. They're from New York, so New York death metal of a new vein. They came out with this demo called Sentient Autolysis. Autolysis. I can never say it. On Maggot Stomp and then Caligari Records. Actually, no, it first came out on Caligari Records. That tape was incredibly hard to get. Like they only pressed like 250 copies, and you were seeing it sell on Discogs for like hundreds of dollars for a cassette tape. Like people they had a dedicated underground fan base just from that demo, and then they made it into a comp. Or sorry, they made it into a they did a split with Devoid of Thought, which is awesome. You should check out that split. Another one that's hard to find on physical release. Um, and then they made a comp again with like their demos and stuff like that. So all of this like underground stuff is going on. Um, Maggot Stomp pressed some of their stuff in the very beginning, and then they got signed to Prosthetic Records, and they released Legions of a Different Kind, and that was back in 2020. They were a COVID band. They were at the height of COVID, and they completely won over me in terms of the old school death metal revival, the knuckle dragging old school death metal revival that was going on at that time. It was super saturated. Magastomp also pressed Legions of a Different Kind as well, so they were still involved with that. And so, but yeah, that scene was super oversaturated. I mean, it still pretty much is. Let's be honest here. But and Undeath has always been the one, in my opinion. You don't have to agree with me, and I know there's gonna be a lot of people that don't agree with me. One of the best underground death metal bands within that revival. They definitely have had their own sound, their own ways of working and playing music across Legions of a Different Kind. Like that's, I was obsessed with that album. I still am. I think it's a fantastic album. One of my favorite modern death metal albums out. And then they come 2 years later with It's Time to Rise from the Grave. This band is known for being relatively goofy. They don't take themselves too seriously. They have a great sense of humor while also putting on a killer show. And I always appreciate bands that don't take themselves way too seriously. The bands that are just so serious and so like we're the shit and we're the best thing to ever happen to this genre. Like that stuff drives me fucking crazy. Like, and I like that these guys, they keep it light, they have a great sense of humor, but they also play pummeling aggressive death metal that's good. And I think that they're one of the bands that are going to continue on and move death metal forward and continue on. And again, unfortunately, there's a lot of old school death metal heads that don't like this band because they don't like anything new, and so there's a lot of criticism from them. But I think in regards to like the current death metal scene and the respect that Undeath gets is definitely worthy of that. The praise that they get, all of the attention is definitely warranted, and I do think that they are one of the best death metal bands right now. And More Insane has definitely proved that for me personally, on a personal level. This album is phenomenal. I It has been a while since I've really put on a death metal album that was brand new, like brand new, not something that I'm so familiar with that I've listened to, over and over and over and over again, where I've just spun it back to back to back to back, like all day long, and been fine with listening to that. Eventually, I want to move on and listen to something different. I think the last time I've done that was several releases earlier this year, like Slime Lord and Atrabilis and those types of albums that I've been praising all year round. I mean, that's just in Brodequin's album, and this is right there. Like this immediately shot up my list of this is going to be absolutely one of my all-time favorite albums this year. I absolutely love it. It is 10 tracks, 33 minutes long. So we're borderline full length there for depending on who you ask. I think it's a perfect amount. I would like it to be a little bit longer, to be honest with you. 33 minutes is if they had gone 40 minutes, maybe 10 more minutes, I would have been fine. These tracks are not long at all, though. The longest track is the third song, Brandish the Blade, which is the single that they put out, which was what immediately sold me on this album. Is 3 minutes 55 seconds long. Anything after that is around 2 minutes. Wailing Cadavers is probably my favorite song on this album. It's one of the more shorter ones. It's 8. The final like 3 tracks on this album, just it ends out perfectly. Wailing Cadavers, Disattachment of Prophylactic in the Brain. Is that right? Is that how you say it? Prophylactic. Again, talking, reading, it's my first language, but I still don't really do it well. Um, and then bones clattering in the cave. Oh, so good. There's an aggression on this. There's a little bit more that they shed the old school death metal sound that they've had in their last two albums. They've had like really kind of like dirgy, knuckle dragging vocal style. A little bit more of like like I said, meat and potatoes death metal sound. Whereas this one has a little bit more of extreme aggression to it. Has a little bit more of the modern death metal sound. Uh, it seems like they're trying, like they've kind of stripped away that like old school death metal worship revival that was going on within their scene, that knuckle draggingness. Alex's vocals are much more variable. Like he doesn't just do the old school death metal growl. He's got a variance now. He's got the really really just aggressive in your face screams, like, and then he does the grotto rolls, and just he sounds phenomenal on this album. Like this is definitely his best folklore performance out of all three of their albums that they've put out. And like I said, it sounds like a much more mature recording in regards to songwriting and composition. The riffs are so good. Every single song has a catchy riff, a catchy hook, a catchy like just everything. Every single song stands out. It's just full speed ahead aggression. It's a very good album. I again, one of the more highly anticipated albums for me this year. The production is so good on this though. I gotta say they scrapped that like murky kind of like underground death metal like production quality. And as everybody knows, I love when death metal sounds like absolute garbage. Like I love when production is shitty. Like I love that demo sound. I absolutely love it, and I collect it and I chase it, and I get so immersed in it. But there's something about this where the production just seems so much better. Like it's a little bit more not like cleaner, because there's definitely it's a death metal album. Like I said about Blood Incantations review, when it death metals, it death metals. Like in this whole album is death metal. Alex's vocals are just nasty and snarly and growly. And sorry, my kids are home because they're off of school because of the hurricane, so you're gonna hear them in the background. Sorry about that. But he mastered his performance on this. Again, I have nothing but high praise for his vocal style. That is really what I immediately was drawn to listening to this. But yeah, there's definitely a better production on this. It's just a little bit more polished, like again, but don't think of that as like super overproduced or anything like that. Not at all. Like I said, there's a maturity to their composition and their songwriting that they've done on this. It's great. It's a great album. It's a pretty straightforward death metal album. Like again, they're not breaking any barriers here. But yeah, again, Wailing Cadavers is such a great song. It's got a really like just brutal death metal. Alex goes off in that. It's very gnarly and guttural, and he has not really done that on other albums yet. So that was awesome to hear. Undeath brutal death metal album. When do it? Just do an EP. Do like a 5-track EP where it's just brutal death metal gutturals. Alex would nail it. There's possible somebody from the band is gonna watch this. That is my request. Just do a one-off. Go do a one-off EP of just brutal death metal guttural songs. Doesn't have to make sense. It could just be dummy death metal, like I like to call it. It would be fucking awesome. I would love that. So, and then the drums on here, awesome. They're tight, just energetic. Double bass is everywhere. So good. The guitar riffs are so good. They do have some slower pace sections. They fast pace and they transition to slower pace. But again, it's just such a much more mature sounding record. Like it's almost like they finally found their stride. They started to maybe creatively try to strip away from that genre picking that people tend to put them in, and said, "Oh, we're gonna write this album." So if you're a fan of Morbid Angel, which is funny to say. You're definitely gonna like this album. There's definitely hints of Suffocation. There's a lot of nods to the bands that we all love in death metal. Every once in a while, I've gotten hints of Cannibal Corpse. I've gotten hints of Morbid Angel. I've gotten hints of Suffocation. And then again, if you're fans of the newer death metal scene, like Necrot, 200 Stab Wounds, you're gonna like this. Like it's a great album. So I love this band. Like I said, I've said it numerous times. They are one of my favorite death metal bands right now. I'm always hyped when they're releasing new music. I really need to see them live. I don't. They could be coming here soon. I don't. There's a lot of concerts coming here soon. So, but yeah, out on Prosthetic Records. I don't think it's sold out. They've pressed a million different variants from all across the different avenues. I think even it's possible Decibel has a variant and stuff like that. Of course, there's going to be CDs. I don't know about tapes. I didn't look into tapes. I have so many Undeath tapes. I might actually snag this on tape if I can find a copy of it. But yeah, it's fantastic. I'll link in the description for their Bandcamp and where you can listen to the album if you're not familiar with this band. Yeah, this is a pretty strong contender for me right now. I'm super pumped about this. So that's all I have today. Again, I'll keep everybody updated how we're doing in the hurricane. I'll probably just do a community post, or maybe a little live reel or something. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I do several updates there. And again, tomorrow I'll be announcing the giveaway winner. So if you don't know what that is, I reached 6,000 subscribers, posted a giveaway announcement on over the weekend, and I'll be announcing the winner tomorrow. So you have all day today. It'll be around like noon or something like that tomorrow. So that's all I have. I'll see you guys in the next one.